All right, after hours with Gavin and Maddie, we are coming in a completely different format. We are crypto charged, but we are coming to you in this format. Maddie, speak to the team here about this new format we're going to be doing here.
We're going to be getting into some topics that we wouldn't traditionally get into on the Ask Maddie show. Yep. Some kind of different takes than we usually do on the Ask Maddie show. And it's the afters, baby. Who doesn't like the afters vibe? So we're here. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Let's get into the news here. Bitcoin ETFs are stepping away from the ideals of crypto. Blockchain execs say in the first week of trading, U.S. spot Bitcoin exchange trade funds attracted billions of dollars, achieving a total trading volume of $10 billion and netting over 782 million and inflows. Maddie, a lot has been happening in speculation and talks with ETFs. What is your total thoughts about ETFs and what they bring to the overall crypto market here?
Yeah, so I think that this was the prime example of the buy the rumors, sell the news type of event. And there was just so much hype and anticipation ahead of this ETF approval. It's really been going on for years and years now. And again, this is for the spot ETF approval, not to be confused with the traditional ETF approvals, because you're probably thinking in your head, well, I could go expose myself to an ETF right now. But it's not direct spot exposure, right? It could have some slight deviance between the actual price of Bitcoin and what the price of that actual ETF is trading at, right? And this is also kind of how GBTC was operating as well, where sometimes those shares could trade at either a premium, so above the price of Bitcoin, or at a discount at a price lesser than Bitcoin at a time, right? So that can have advantages, but can also have disadvantages. But when we have this big anticipation of an ETF, right? We finally get the approval. Everyone's wondering, why are we seeing these outflows, right? Why are we seeing such big rejection after all this money's pouring in? You have all these new retail consumers that are now able to just quickly and easily add Bitcoin to their ETF portfolio, right? Or add it to a portfolio of other things they already have there. And a lot of it has to do with the technicals. And I know that people don't like to hear that. They like to hear that, hey, ETF approval, 100K Bitcoin, right? And I do think we get to 100K Bitcoin, but I don't ever try to attach myself to a narrative like this for this exact reason. When we pull up the chart, essentially what you get is you look at the last cycle high, cycle low, right? We look at $69,000, $70,000, $15,500 is the low. You throw a fib sequence on that, and you look at what happened. Price, first of all, marched very, very aggressive with no actual real narrative to help Bitcoin get there. We reach a perfect 618 extension or retracement, which is within the Fibonacci sequence, the golden number, or phi, right? And the news pops it right to that level, and then we just see a big sell-off from there, right? So even though I love to see the adoption story, I love to see more people have the ability to have different ways to be exposed to Bitcoin or whatever financial assets they want. I am still a firm believer that the charts drive this stuff, and the fundamentals just happen to align with what the charts are providing for us. So love to see the inflow, but I think those are some of the reasons why we kind of saw the immediate knockback from those prices.
Maddie, I also wanted to throw something else at you. So this guy, Andy Bromberg, and this other guy named Lucas Henney, they have some negative thoughts about crypto. Andy goes on to say something along the lines of, he warns that Bitcoin ETFs may contribute to increased centralization in the crypto industry as traditional financial institutions gain excessive influence, contradicting Bitcoin's decentralized ideals. Is this gonna hurt Bitcoin in the long run?
I think that there's a lot of crypto purists out there. And as a libertarian, as somebody who is very much pro-freedom, small government, keep your hands out of my pockets type of viewpoint on most of the world, this is just something that's naturally going to occur over time. And I know that people think, well, you're not pro-crypto if you believe these things. Well, no, I'm also a realist, and I've also been studying the financial markets for a very long time. And I understand that if you start to have trillions of dollars pour in of real institutional money, right, there is going to be a very large centralized factor to that, right? If you have these conglomerates hoarding enormous amounts of Bitcoin, or any other asset for that matter, right? This is just happened to be, we're talking about crypto in this particular instance, right? They can manipulate price. They can create scenarios where, retail consumers are not as easily able to join or exit the markets because they can manipulate using their bags the price of a certain asset. And I do think that there is going to be a big wave of centralization in crypto. But that doesn't mean that the money-making opportunities aren't there, right? You have to realize that, and I've talked about this in many times on my show on cryptochurch.com. The reality is, the money that comes into this market, the real money that comes into this market, is institutional money. And if you are of the belief that, Bitcoin reaches whatever, let's say 250,000, 500,000, $1 million per Bitcoin, where do you guys think that money comes from? Do you think it's because every Joe Schmo is pulling the Christmas pennies from under his mattress? No, it is institutional money. I promise you that 99, 98% of the money that's in the market is institutional money, and that's where most of that direction comes from. So, you can choose to invest in assets that you believe are quote unquote truly fully decentralized, but there's always some centralized factor to it. We've also talked previously about Bitcoin mining, right? That is already very centralized, and we can, break that out and say, hey, look at these top 3 companies are responsible for over 50% of all the mining that's done, right? And over time, that becomes more and more centralized, right? Somebody can afford to foot the bill for better hardware, can buy up other conglomerates, can monopolize this. And I do believe that Bitcoin mining becomes more and more monopolized. So at the end of the day, with all these factors that you have zero control over, you have to make the decision of, I'm investing in this because I think it's a good investment, not because I think this is always going to be a decentralized way to transact. I don't think that there's going to be huge highways of decentralized payments where there's no government overreach or no government oversight with those aspects of it. So I do agree with that concept of, crypto is going to become more centralized over time, but it's not going to deter me from investing because I'm here to make money. And I really don't care how centralized or decentralized it is.
Maddie, tinfoil hat time. I got some speculation for you here. So we've seen all last year, like the kind of rollout of the spot Bitcoin ETFs and the approval, the SEC and their play there. And we just saw the approval last week of 11 spot Bitcoin ETFs. But also looking at the technical side with trading, we saw a local high in Bitcoin for this cycle. So to me, Maddie, when I'm looking at you doing your TA, when looking at Dan Habib doing his TA, and there's a lot of different factors here, it kind of looks like Bitcoin just reached its local high before we ascend into the bull run. So right now we're probably going to enter lower prices in Bitcoin. I know like Bitcoin was rummaging lower today. Like I think it hit 39K or below 40K for sure. So we've seen this fall down in Bitcoin prices with a big event like spot Bitcoin ETF approval last week. Is this all a coincidence for to get like the regular investor into Bitcoin at these prices? Because I feel like it's just like a weird little timing thing that happened here with the potential of seeing this local high on Bitcoin before we fall to lower prices.
Yeah, I definitely think that, first of all, let's take a step back. Just thinking about the psychology of the average retail consumer when they're entering anything, right? This is not crypto specific. Think about kind of the whole GameStop AMC situation that popped off, right? Most of these people that got involved don't know anything about buying or selling stocks. They don't understand how liquidity works. They don't understand how market makers work. They don't even understand how to open a short position if, you told them, hey, you can make a bunch of money, opening a short position, right? But they want to get involved because they see prices up and they think that price is always going to continue that direction with no pullbacks because their friend got it at this price and they got out at this price and they got a 2x, a 3x, a 4x out of that project or that asset, right? So when we get these big, euphoric events, crypto has been doing really well since October of last year, right? So October, November, December, January, right? So this was like 3.5, 4 months of just straight uptrend with like almost no pullbacks, right? And if anybody thinks that that's super normal, right, you're completely lost in the whole process. So when you have people who are not privy to what Bitcoin's already been doing, privy to what the chart looks like and how aggressively we've ascended over the last several months, right? And you look at whatever, let's say a $40,000 Bitcoin, $42,000 Bitcoin, and long term you say, okay, what's going to be worth 100 or 120 or 160 or 180, whatever the prices that you have for yourself in mind, right? It sounds like a great deal, but most people are very uneducated when they enter the market, and they enter based off of the sentiment of other retail investors around them, which is just a disgusting and terrible way to go about it. So I do agree that we're going to see a pretty significant decline here. There's definitely some people making money based off of, they knew that this ETF was going to get approved. They most likely, were already, closing out their shorts up into that 618, right? And they probably are short right now. They're probably short from that 618 right now. Those banks and institutions, they will trade against you all day long and they do not care. So, us coming down to, let's say, anywhere between 30 and 35,000 would be a healthy, reasonable pullback. And big banks and institutions know that, right? So there's definitely plenty of bids down there. I think we'll see plenty of price action pick back up. But in the short term, yeah, a little bit of bleeding is perfectly healthy. And I think that the average retail consumer that just entered the market is going to be very surprised by this, maybe a little upset, and maybe even throw away the idea of crypto as a whole because they're not used to seeing something go down minus 20, 30, or 40% in a single cycle. But you know what? Guess what? In the stock market, you generally don't see a 2, 3, 4, 5x gain over, just a few month period. So, it's a little bit of a balance there that we have to get used to as retail consumers.
Like it. Let's keep moving along here. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva on crypto. It's not money. IMF Managing Director Kristalina distinguished cryptocurrencies as an asset class rather than money, liking them to a money management fund. She highlighted the security and risk differences between backed and unbacked cryptocurrencies. Despite the significance of the spot Bitcoin ETF approval, she doesn't foresee cryptocurrency rivaling the dollar, essentially. She attributed the dollar's dominance to the size of the U.S. economy and the depth of its capital markets. She expressed a lack of urgency for crypto to surpass the dollar. Maddie, what's your thoughts on this one? I feel like you got a lot to say on this one.
So to some extent, I actually agree with this sentiment, and I think that it upsets people to some extent because it puts me in a position where they think that I'm not pro decentralization or I'm not pro alternative forms of money. But that's not true, right? Humans will trade back and forth whatever they think is valuable, right? Whether it be previously salt, like literal physical salt, whether it be precious metals, whether it be food, whatever that medium of value is, humans will figure out what that is and they'll decide, right? We make the market, supply and demand determines, what is valuable. But in relations to being money, I don't think that 99% of crypto out there its goal is to actually be money, right? Now you can say Bitcoin's a store of value because over time it goes up in value, right? But money by nature does not go up in value. In fact, it's like programmed to go down in value over long periods of time. Now, of course, we can earn interest on that cash, but the whole concept of those, currencies that don't change in value, even though they change in value against other currencies, or in your purchasing power, right? They always stay the same. And there is some sort of medium that we have to have and some sort of consistency we have to have in order to transact and not have this fluctuating rate all the time of my dollar's worth, $2 now it's worth 50 cents. Now it's worth 3.50. Now it's worth 75 cents, right? That's not a healthy and reasonable way to transact. So the dollar, is that going to be the thing that we always care about in relations to having these physical pieces of paper? No, I don't think that's true. But, us moving from the current digital form of money, being your bank account, to a blockchain backed, asset like USDT or USDC, which are already backed by, traditional monetary instruments like treasury bonds and money market accounts and things of that nature. I do think that that's going to be a very easy transition for the most part once we've established from the government that these are good for public and private debts, right? But I do agree with the sentiment that Bitcoin, XRP, all these assets that are very powerful and are essentially networks for us to transact lots of different mediums on, whether it be stocks or metals or dollars themselves, right, are going to be very powerful. But I would never want to say, yes, I'm just taking my paycheck at XRP. I'm taking my paycheck in Bitcoin, right? Because we all have that desire for some sort of stability when we transact with, those types of units.
Stable coins, Maddie, stable coins. I love stable coins, but man, cryptocurrency is going to change my life. I don't want to be one of those guys. It's going to change my life because it's an investment. It's an investment.
It is an investment, exactly.
I like the price fluctuation. I like the volatility. I can trade the volatility. I can invest at the bottom and sell at the top. Like, those are the things I like about crypto. So, I definitely get her stance here, and you definitely agreed on a lot of what she had to say. So I think this was overall a good article, but let's move along here. Jamie Dimon slams Bitcoin as a pet rock that does nothing and vows he's done talking about crypto. Oh, finally, Jamie. Jamie Dimon restated his criticism of Bitcoin, likening it to a pet rock and categorizing it among cryptocurrencies that lack substantial value. Dimon distinguishes between two types of cryptocurrencies: those with a potential purpose and trade value, and others like Bitcoin, which he associates with various financial crimes totaling over 100 billion annually, including money laundering, fraud, tax avoidance, sex trafficking. Maddie, can't this all be done with a dollar as well?
Yeah, of course, right? Everything he's referencing here is just the silliest thing I've ever heard, right? When you look at like the percentage of total GDP that's used to commit crimes using dollars, like it cracks double digits, which is absolutely insane, right? And that's just the money that we're able to actually track and say, we know for a fact this was used for illicit activity. There's probably a much larger percentage that's actually used for illicit that we're not aware of, right? Because there's the IRS alone can audit like 3 to 5% of the population because that's the resources they have. I'm sure that worldwide those figures look somewhat somewhat, similar. Obviously, you start committing large crimes, across the world, they're going to allocate more resources to hunt those down. But I digress, right? Bitcoin in itself is not this mechanism where we can just say it's easy to commit crimes. In fact, it's a little bit more difficult to some extent, especially if you're using exchanges and that those exchanges are tied to somebody who has an ID and there's KYC required on the exchange in order to move back into cash, right? There is definitely more traceability to that. In fact, we as just retail consumers can go and look on some of these scanners and see, what was sent, how much was sent, at what time it was sent, what time it was confirmed, right? We can visibly see these types of things that would not usually be visible with something like cash, right? Which is the preferred method of money to move if you're in the cartel or you're doing some sort of major illicit activity, right? But Jamie Dimon specifically, right? And a lot of these comments were made in the last 2 years. So we really barely just got the spot ETF. We barely just got the news about XRP in itself and not inherently being a security, which kind of really opened a whole can of worms with the conversation of what crypto is and, how we can treat these assets and what kind of tax liabilities are associated with them and things of that nature, right? Their personal property. At the time, right? What is happening in the crypto market is you have investors, especially younger investors, right, who are pulling away from those traditional vehicles, right? They're pulling away from the stock market. They're pulling away from, earning just a tiny bit of money on their money market accounts. That directly hurts Jamie Dimon's bread and butter. It hurts his bottom line when he does not have the ability to sell you an asset class that is blowing up and taking business directly away from the stock market, right? So I have no reason to believe that Jamie Dimon will ever tell us the truth. We know that also during this time that they are working on their own wallet, their own cryptocurrency wallet called JP Morgan Coin or JP Morgan Wallet or some nonsense like that. Instead of they close it down, to open back up more trading desks. It's do what they say, not what they do, right? And I think that Jamie Dimon's a perfect example of that. I think that he's absolutely full of it, and again, is in business for himself. He is part of one of the longest standing legacy financial institutions, and he has nothing but incentive to protect that, right? And then what's the fallback for this? If, for example, let's say 3 years from now, JP Morgan offers just about every major ETF and maybe even some spot exchange stuff, right? There's absolutely no consequences for that because he goes, well, we made a little bit of a judgment thing, but we want to make sure consumers have what they need, so we're going to offer these services now, right? And consumers are not going to be mad at Jamie Dimon. So it's a win-win for him to talk shit now and then just reverse that later because there's no consequences. So just food for thought, guys.
Yeah, crypto was these guys' worst nightmare. Like Satoshi Nakamoto got off for sure. Like there's no way. Maddie, you've been around since the beginning. Have you ever heard of the Bitcoin meetup website where you could you have Bitcoin and you could go trade it with someone on the street for dollars? Did you ever hear about that? Because I wonder if that's still around because I found out about that. I was reintroduced to it the other day. I'm like, dude, this goes past everything. The government, the IRS probably hates this. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, and unfortunately, in the last, I want to say 3 years, the KYC has been cracking down on those sites, right? You used to be able to basically kind of like a Reddit thread to some extent. You could still do this on Reddit or something of that nature. You guys, you just got to be careful that you're not meeting up someone nefarious that is going to, quote unquote, give you cash for your Bitcoin, and next thing you know, you got a 9mm to your head and you got no more Bitcoin. But the idea was to take it extremely decentralized, right? And there was a premium that was being paid for that. So, for example, let's say I have a Bitcoin on my wallet and you've got cash, you're going to pay a 10% discount in cash, but for giving me the cash directly and me making that transaction to you so that you can, acquire Bitcoin. I don't have to KYC and vice versa. I'm getting some cash out of this and I didn't have to tell the government about me making a little bit of money, right? But again, that's becoming more and more difficult as, basically if you're publicly advertising this website, you're on a hit list now for a KYC verification.
Well, opposing to complete and utter decentralization, let's talk about centralization. Trump tells New Hampshire voters he'd never allow a Federal Reserve digital dollar. Trump opposes the idea of a CBDC, expressing concerns about protecting Americans from government tyranny during a campaign in New Hampshire. He argued it would give the federal government excessive control over individuals' money, allowing them to seize funds without account holders' knowledge. And this aligns with conservatives. Maddie, what are your thoughts on this? Because I feel like in the past you've been pretty pro actually CBDC, just as an investment. This will uplift a lot of our investments here. A centralized digital dollar, a backed digital dollar, that would be pretty revolutionary here. What's your general thoughts on this, and maybe just CBDC general thoughts?
You guys already interact with this whether you want to or not. If you are a banked individual of any kind, you are already involved in the central banking system. There's already a large group of people who control all of your money, right? If they wanted to right now, if the federal government thinks that you're involved in something that you shouldn't be involved in, or you've been indicted, guess what?
Yeah, you're done.
Chase Bank, hey.
Yeah.
I don't care if he's got $3 million. That $3 million doesn't go anywhere. Freeze it, right? And it's frozen. And they can legally do that. There's absolutely nothing you can do to reverse that until you've gone through whatever court process or whatever to get it unfrozen. So already right now, if you are involved in the central system, you are already accepting that these are things that can happen to you. IRS says that you owe them some money or you have some judgments that have been put against you. Garnish right out of your bank account, whatever that percentage is. They can yank it right out and you don't have a thing that you can do about it. So don't think that you already have control over your money right now, right? Even if with your cash dollars, what if the government one day just says, you know what, no more cash dollars, you got to bring them in, or we're switching to this currency, these currencies are no longer good. And if you think that can't happen, I was literally in Europe when this happened, when they switched over from the francs to the euros. So at a certain point, you either had to take all your money to the bank, centralize it, right, and swap them for euros, or eventually your francs were worth absolutely nothing, right? I just want you guys to think about some of these things. When we talk about CBDCs, it's more about just upgrading the existing central system and making it more digital. You're not going to get any more or less freedoms, right? You're already going to have to consent to Big Daddy government, being able to stick his hand in your account if he wants to or feels like he needs to. We're just going to be more efficient with it. We're going to be laying digital, railways so that we're being more efficient with those money, being able to send more money more quickly, and removing some of that friction. But again, all those concerns you have, you should have those same exact concerns if crypto didn't exist today, because that central bank is not going anywhere. All we're doing is making it more digital.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see, it's just like the rollout this year. It's election year. So you're seeing all these people that are running that are giving their CBDC pieces, but some of them have been standing on the podium giving them their Bitcoin pieces. I think a lot of people waiting on DT to give his official, hey, Bitcoin, let's go. But I know he did some, what did he do? Bitcoin ordinals. He did some NFTs, something like that.
Yeah, so this is his second round of NFTs. So, he's previously Trump's also just been super anti-Bitcoin. Now he's inscribing on the ordinals. So, politicians, guys, take it with a grain of salt. They don't, again, just like Jamie Dimon, they don't care. They'll walk it back all the time. They flip-flop on stuff all the time. When it benefits them, they will always flip to the thing that is most popular at the time. So, don't worry about, the opinions of small people like that.
Crypto can make messy divorces even messier. Crypto assets can complicate divorce proceedings due to their unique nature, posing challenges in recovery compared to conventional marital assets. Maddie, if you're married, what are you doing with your crypto? Are you giving it away? Is it part of the plan? Are you keeping your ledger and you're not telling your wife? What are you doing?
So eventually what we're going to have more of, right? Right now it's probably a little bit of Wild West, and that's just, again, part of us, getting things together here. I would say the average person who's not privy to cold storage, they're just doing most of this stuff on exchange. It's going to be very easy for them to show those purchases. When you have money coming out of your bank account, right? They can show, hey, $1,000 went into Coinbase, $1,000 went into Coinbase, right? All of that's information that's going to get subpoenaed if you're in a messy divorce period. So even if you pulled it into cold storage, what your significant other could do is hire a forensic expert, right? And what they can do is they can basically look through all these transactions, see where you moved the money, and even if you're not, they don't know exactly where the ledger is, they go, hey, they had this money, they moved it to this wallet. This wallet has just been receiving money, hasn't been spending any money, right? And they can prove most likely that you have been doing those things. I actually provided a brief testimony to how cryptocurrency worked, and a friend of mine, he was going through a divorce actually, and his partner at the time said she couldn't get a job and she didn't have any money and all this different stuff. But then turns out she had 35 grand in crypto that she wasn't reporting because she thought that it wasn't like stocks and she didn't have to report that. So I basically provided a little bit of testimony, educated the judge a little bit about how crypto works and how these exchanges are, regulated in a very similar way to how stock brokerages are. But it actually helped him pay a significantly less amount of child support after that whole situation, settled there. But don't think that, this isn't something that can be treated like stocks. If you have an asset and it belongs to you and you get married, and this is for the majority of states, there's some states that are a little bit different, but California being a no-fault state, doesn't matter if your wife cheated on you with 5 guys, you give her half of everything you own. That's how it works, right? So it doesn't matter where you're keeping it. Maybe if she doesn't, know about crypto at all, maybe you might get lucky, but if you're going through a messy divorce, you got a significant amount of money, she's getting half or he's getting half.
Oh, Maddie, what a crazy world we live in, bro. Oh my gosh. I'm just going to say, man, I went offshore exchange. I lost all the money. I sent it somewhere. I have no idea where it went.
Donated it all to Ukraine. I'm so sorry, sweetheart.
And that's going to be it. I know we've talked about getting your family involved with, what you're doing in crypto, letting them know your 24 seed phrase, letting them know where they can access everything. But I don't know, Maddie. This is kind of I kind of want to stay away from stuff like this. Like coming after my crypto. And are they gonna hold my crypto? Are they gonna sell my? You're gonna sell all my crypto with like we're in a bear market. Like what? I need all that money now. Crypto's gone when it's like could 5-10x in the bull run. Like
right, hurts.
This breaks my heart. Well, all right, Maddie, we covered all the news today. You got any good points? I think we talked about a lot of good stuff today. Geez, like these are the stuff that people want to hear about. And as it relates to crypto and finance overall, I think we're gonna have to see an interesting rollout this year. I mean, what are your thoughts this year?
We've highlighted a lot of things that really just show and continue to illustrate how early we are within crypto as a whole. The fact that these questions are a question that the average person would not know the answer to really tells us that we are still early in the definition process of what digital assets are, how we're allowed to custody those, what those tax implications look like, what this means for the bigger, grander scheme of the macro environment and the global economy, right? And some of those concerns. So I think that they're all valid points. I think that a lot of these things that we talk about are things that we should be discussing, things that we should keep the conversation moving on. But some of these things, you can be as passionate as you want about it, but the reality is they're coming whether you like it or not. So it's really kind of just accepting some of these facts and then doing what you can investment-wise to make yourself as happy and as sound and abundant as possible so you don't have to worry about them so much, right? Maybe you have the opportunity to have an additional residence somewhere outside of the U.S. if you don't like what's happening here politically or with the way that crypto is being treated, right? It's more about setting yourself up to avoid those things with the profits that you're making now, right? Because we've talked about over time, the returns diminish within crypto, and that's just like, any asset, the more money comes into it, the harder it is to make it move higher. So really, guys, over these next few years, take this opportunity, capitalize on it, and just try to get as wealthy as possible because, this is a wave of tech that's very powerful, and eventually it will become very standard and become less lucrative.
That's smart, Maddie. Dude, I'm ready to turn up the DCAs. I'm hoping all these altcoins flipping fall hard. I hope they fall hard. I want to see low XRP prices. I want to see low Casper prices. Bitcoin could drop all the way down to 32K and I won't even blink. Like that's what I'm looking for right now. So just so I can do some more accumulation before we get into this Bitcoin halving and see prices rise again. And I think, this is last chance right here for everyone, right? Like day one of your last chance before the bull run. So, hey, take it with a grain of salt or, make some changes in your life. Grab some fiat. I know Maddie speaks about, hey, man, I am allocating money to my fiat bag every single week. So when we see big crashes like we're probably about to see right now, I mean, Bitcoin's already dropped tremendously, but we're going to see a pretty large Bitcoin crash. We could see anywhere from like a 20-30% crash. That's when you want to be deploying that. And so I'm getting my bags ready, Maddie. I know you are too. I know you're still DCAing right now. Anything else to talk about right now? I know we got the Ask Maddie show coming out on Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. So you guys can ask Maddie your guys' questions. Leave those in the comments down below. Anything to leave the team with here, Maddie? Why don't you close out today? You close out.
Make sure you guys click in with our community, right? So YouTube's great. I love that you guys interact with us here. Show us love with the like button in the comments here. Even if you guys think we're full of it, I love hearing you guys' comment and feedback on everything we're doing here. It helps us shape the show a little bit, so I appreciate that. And make sure you're plugged in with our Discord community as well. That's going to be part of your CryptoCharge membership, 30 days free. Click the link below. YouTube gets you 50% off. So hope to see you guys there soon.
Later, guys.